Being an author requires you to have dozens, if not hundreds, of accounts for different websites. Amazon, ConvertKit, Publisher Rocket, Patreon, Klytics, BookVault, AuthorMedia.social, AuthorXP, BookBub, Kickstarter, Teachable, Bluehost, WordPress, Grammarly, Plotter, and on and on. Some authors avoid using tools that could make their writing better and their publishing easier because of passwords. Some of you, when you were listening to me list off all of those sites, a heavy feeling settled in your heart because passwords for you are a hassle. I know this is true because the number one most common tech support question I get from authors has to do with passwords and logins. Often it's actually not the password that's the problem, it's the email address. They can't remember which email address went with which password. But don't worry. There is a simple way to eliminate your password problems, which you will learn about in this episode of Novel Marketing, the longest-running book marketing podcast in the world. I'm Thomas Umstattd Jr., and this is the show for writers who want to build their platform, sell more books, and make a living writing books worth talking about. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast by clicking follow in the podcast app on your phone or by clicking subscribe on YouTube. Now, the first step to getting rid of your password troubles is to avoid making one of the password mistakes. The first mistake is to use the same handful of passwords for every website. There are several problems with this approach. First is that you don't have the same username with everything. Did you use your username or your backup username? Did you use your good email address or your junk email address? Or maybe the old email address you haven't used in a long time. But the password problem compounds. Did you use your strong password with your junk email or did you use your regular password with your good email? Were there special password requirements for this website that caused you to use a different password? If you have a dozen passwords, a couple of usernames, and 3 email addresses, the total number of potential combinations is over 70. That is a frustrating and debilitating number of combinations. But the much bigger problem with this method is hackers. Hackers love posting password dumps on the dark web as a way of bragging and showing off what they were able to hack. Almost every major website has been hacked, which means that password that you've been using various versions of for the last decade is downloadable on the dark web. Once a hacker has your email and password from a recent breach, he can start to use that combo on other websites to see what doors it unlocks. So using the same passwords over and over again is a terrible mistake, but it's not the only mistake. The second mistake is to use a physical password book. Some people keep a little black book by their desk with all their passwords in it. This system seems to work well at first, but it breaks down with each new service you sign up for. Remember, professional authors often end up having hundreds of accounts in various places, and that book becomes unwieldy. It becomes difficult to find the password that you're looking for. And often you forget to write the password in it in the first place, which means after all that hunting, you still can't find your password. But I think the biggest problem with this system is that you have to remember to add each password and username in order for it to work. And if you forget, you're locked out of your account, and it's very easy to forget. And if that paper book is lost, stolen, or damaged, you've lost everything. And it's not portable. The book is too precious to take with you, which means when you're away from your desk, you've lost access to all of your accounts. So the little book just doesn't work. The third mistake is a digital password document. A digital password document has all of the downsides of a physical password book, but with the added downside of being less secure. Anyone who has access to your computer now has access to your Word document with all of your passwords. If your hard drive crashes, you've lost everything. This is a terrible, terrible system, so don't do it. The fourth mistake is relying on your browser to remember your passwords. Your web browser will eagerly beg you to remember your passwords. And in some ways, this is the best of the bad options, but there's still a lot of problems with it. The first problem is the number of unknowns. Depending on the browser, the password list might be encrypted, but then it might not. Your password list might be saved to the cloud, but then again, it might not. But if it is saved to the cloud, is it saved in a way that you could access a copy if your computer were to crash? Is it secure? If your computer crashed, would you lose all your passwords? Your browser is just not a good place to store your passwords. And what's more, your browser is not the only place where you need access to your account information. What do you do if you want to log into your bank's app on your phone in order to deposit a check? But the password is saved in Chrome. How do you access it? What if you want to log into an account on your smart TV? Browsers just aren't a good place to store passwords. Finally, what if you change browsers? Some browsers can automatically import your passwords from other browsers, but some cannot. And sometimes you need a complicated and unencrypted CSV import in order to change browsers. This is why the browsers want to store your passwords, because they know it's a way of locking you in. And again, the passwords are typically not very secure. Often anyone who can log into your computer can access all of your browser's saved passwords. Relying on your browser to remember your passwords is a recipe for frustration, and it's not as easy as it looks, nor as secure as it seems. So what do I recommend instead? I recommend using a password manager. Password managers like 1Password.com solve all of the problems with the other systems. A password manager stores your passwords in an encrypted vault that only you can access with a single super password. You can think of a password manager as a safe deposit box full of keys, all of your keys. Your super password unlocks the safe deposit box, giving you access to all of the keys inside, but none of those websites ever know what your super password is. I've personally used 1Password for the last 15 years, and here's what I love about it. I love that it has a different password for every website. 1Password has a strong password generator, making it easy to create new, strong passwords for the new sites that I sign up for. Since I've been using 1Password for so long, every website I go to has a unique and strong password. My bank once contacted me letting me know that they'd been hacked and asked me to reset my password. Since my password for the bank was unique, I was able to quickly reset the password, and at that point the hackers had a useless password. I love that 1Password is secure. 1Password uses AES 256-bit encryption using both salting and hashing, making it more secure than the other methods that I've talked about. It also has protections against attacks like spoofing, so it's protecting you from things you may not even know about, which I really like. So while your paper password book feels secure because it's offline, if you were ever to get robbed, the passwords are readable by the thief. On the other hand, if a thief stole my computer or my phone, he would have access to nothing. All he would have is an encrypted vault he can't access. I also like that 1Password is platform agnostic. It works on your phone, your Mac, your PC, your Android, so you're not locked into any browser or operating system. It even runs on Linux if you're a super nerd. I love that it works with Face ID on my phone, which allows me to log in with my face. And it also syncs the passwords across devices, making sure I always have the most recent password on every device. I also like that it's automatic. 1Password integrates with my browser automatically, and so it'll detect when I create a new account or if I log into an existing account, and then ask if I want to save the password. It also inserts the passwords automatically, making logging into sites a breeze, and this is the key. You want logging in to be easy. It also automatically remembers older versions of a password. So if I update a password, it still remembers the old version, just in case. I also love that 1Password gives me password access, because sometimes you want to be able to see your password. This happens the most for me when I'm trying to use a smart TV. And with the 1Password app, I can tap View Password on my phone to see the password in large letters. It has dark web monitoring, which is nice. So 1Password will monitor the dark web, and if it sees that one of my accounts has been compromised, it will warn me so I can go and reset the password on whichever website was hacked this month. And every month, it's some different website that gets hacked, and because I'm using 1Password, I don't have to worry about it. They worry about it on my behalf. I also like that it's paid. So the older I get, the more I believe in paying for what you use. I'm a free Texan and I hate communism. The food is free for chickens in the chicken coop because the chickens are the product being sold. Workers should be paid for their labor, and companies should be paid for their services. Sure, there are free password managers out there, but I want to use a password manager that sees me as the customer. And if I need customer support, I want a human to answer my questions because I'm the customer. I realize I sound old and crotchety when I say this, but I just like being the customer. Also, because 1Password doesn't have a free tier, fewer people using it, making it a less attractive target for hackers. Every hacker in the world is constantly trying to hack LastPass and Bitwarden because they have millions of free users. And I really like that 1Password is easy to use. It was easy to use 15 years ago, and it has gotten easier to use over time. I have hundreds, if not thousands, of accounts on various websites and apps, and passwords are just not something I have to stress about. I also love the iPhone integration. So a few years ago, Apple added 1Password integration deep into the iPhone, which means anytime I see a login screen on some app, I can access 1Password right from that other app, which means apps that don't have Face ID still have Face ID because I just tap passwords and 1Password will check for Face ID and then give me access to that app. It is a huge stress saver. I still have more things I love about 1Password. I love the secure info storage. So 1Password has a place to store credit cards, software keys, and rewards program numbers, among many other things. So if a hotel asks me for my platinum rewards number, I know exactly where to go to find that number. 1Password. And if I need to add my credit card to an e-commerce website to check out, 1Password can insert that credit card automatically. And what I love about this is it makes it easier to shop on websites that are not Amazon. Part of the reason why we shop on Amazon so much is because they have our credit card stored. But with 1Password, my credit card is always handy, which means it's easy for me to buy from authors or other companies directly. Having all of this information stored in one secure place avoids more stress than you might realize. So real quick, before we go, I want to talk about some of the other password managers. Any password manager is going to be better than using one of the 4 mistakes. So let me talk briefly about some of the other ones that I'm familiar with. LastPass is the biggest one you've probably heard of, and I used to recommend LastPass, but I just don't like using free software anymore. Yes, it has a paid plan, but the paid plan is not as good or as easy to use as 1Password. So if you're going to pay, might as well pay for the best. Now, I do want to note one thing on LastPass, because there's been a lot of buzz about LastPass on authormedia.social. Yes, the company LastPass got hacked a few times, but the media reports on those hacks were overblown. LastPass encrypts each user's vault separately. So even though the company was hacked, and it's actually been hacked a few times over the last few years, in none of those hacks were any vaults compromised. Each one of those vaults has 256-bit encryption, which means it's strong enough that unless there's some future breakthrough in quantum computing or space computers, each customer vault would take millions of years to unencrypt, and that's on a per vault basis. So yes, LastPass as a company was hacked, but that doesn't mean that the vaults were compromised. This approach of having your own personally encrypted vault is a very secure approach. I have a lot of friends who work in cybersecurity, and all but 1 or 2 of them use a password manager. And the ones who don't use a password manager have the kind of brain that can remember hundreds, if not thousands, of passwords because they're really, really smart. Another password manager is Apple Passwords. So this is Apple's new password manager that's an upgraded and rebranded version of iCloud Keychain. So as of this recording, this will work on Windows, but not Android or Chrome OS. And the Windows app doesn't look like it's going to be very easy to use. Apple typically creates a walled garden wanting to keep its users inside of the Apple ecosystem. So when it makes things for Windows, they're not typically very good. But if you use a Mac and you're all in on Apple products, this will probably be the best of the free password managers. Another popular password manager is Bitwarden. Bitwarden is 1Password's closest competitor. And from what I hear, it's not as easy to use as 1Password, but I haven't personally tried it. If you've figured out how to use it and you're happy with it, I don't see any reason to switch. If you like your Bitwarden, you're more than welcome to keep it. And remember, you're an adult. It's a free country. You can do whatever you want. Bitwarden offers a free plan, which I'm not a big fan of because it puts a bigger target on its back. But the paid version is really cheap. The paid version of Bitwarden is cheaper than the paid version of 1Password. But neither of them are very expensive. And for me, I'd rather pay a little bit more for quality, especially when it comes to storing all of my precious passwords. If you want to sign up for 1Password and support this podcast at the same time, they finally created an affiliate program. I've been recommending 1Password to authors since 2010, and I think I got on their affiliate program like a year ago. So I'm glad they finally have an affiliate program, but I recommended them before they had that. So I'll have the affiliate link in the blog version of this episode, which you can find at authormedia.com/422. Or if you want to sign up for it without supporting the podcast, just go to 1password.com. And I'm curious what password manager you use. I know there's a lot of password managers out there that I didn't mention, and many of them are good. Remember, any password manager is better than one of the 4 mistakes. So what password manager do you use? Are you happy with it? Leave a comment and let us know. Our featured patron today is J.D. Rempel, author of Melanie on the Move. Now, Melanie's life seems perfect. She's a star on her swim team, has great friends, and she's turning 13 in a few weeks. But when her family is forced to move, her world starts to unravel. Isolated in a new town, Melanie misses her old life. While visiting church, she hears a message that God loves and cares about her, but it's hard to believe when more troubles fall on her family. Can Melanie learn to trust in a God that allows bad things to happen? Discover with Melanie how he can bring something good even from the difficulties in life. J.D. Rempel, thank you so much for being a supporter of the podcast. It is your support that helps keep this podcast on the air, and I really appreciate your support and all of the other patrons who financially pay for Novel Marketing. So Novel Marketing, you can choose to pay for it or you can choose to get it for free. And it's up to you. I offer it for free to everyone, but I really do appreciate everyone who chooses to support the podcast. The Novel Marketing Podcast is a production of authormedia.com. Audio engineering by William Umstadt, blogification by Shauna Lettler. And to read the blog version of this episode and find links to everything we talked about today, go to authormedia.com/422. I'm Thomas Umstadt Jr. saying thank you for listening and live long and prosper.